I'm just going to wait a few minutes for everybody to join. Great. Well, welcome everybody to our weekly HEALEY ALS Platform update. I just want to start with a little message and thanks. As everybody knows, this is an incredible week for advocacy about ALS, and with Lou Gehrig's Day, really honoring everybody with ALS, past, present, and Lou Gehrig, and really raising awareness. And I wanted to especially thank many of you and other people with ALS who nominated the Healey Center EAP program for this first year for the MLB to give donations to. So they're auctioning off a ball from each of the 30 games, and those proceeds will go to the Healey EAP. And there's a for those of you who are Yankee fans, I'm from Boston, so not there's an auction from MasterCard for 10 people to go to a Yankees game, and then there's going to be the NFT about Lou Gehrig's speech. So, but the reason they picked our center is because of people like you who when asked, said that. So I just want to know that how much that means to all of us. The most important thing will be the day that we say we have a cure, and this is right behind that, really pretty close of what it means to us. So thank you for that. So I'll pass it to Sabrina.
Thank you, Merit, for that, and welcome everyone. It's really great to be able to connect with you on a weekly basis, and I'm also here with Catherine and Alison, our patient navigators, who are available to connect every day. Feel free to send us questions as we speak today through the Q&A box, and during the week as well. We can go to the next slide. As always, for the new people, I know many people have been joining us on a weekly basis, but we always see new names on the attendee list. So just wanted to briefly summarize the design of the trial, which is a perpetual adaptive trial. So what that means is that we continue to grow, and we want to really keep the trial open long term until we find cures for everyone with ALS. And so we continue to adapt and test more drugs. So at this time, we're testing 4 drugs, which are listed on the slide and color-coded: zilucoplan, verdiperstat, CNM-Au8, and pridopidine. They are being tested using a common protocol and a common infrastructure. And because of that big infrastructure that we launched last year, and we continue to keep open and to test more treatments, we can do something called a sharing of placebos. And so essentially what we are doing here, we're maximizing the chances of participants of to be on active drug. It's a 3-to-1 ratio active to placebo, and we are sharing placebo data so that we can again maximize the efficiency of the study and minimize placebo. So the double-blind trial, where we really test the safety and efficacy of the drug, lasts 6 months, and after that there is an open label extension. From a participant perspective, this means starting where the arrow is at the informed consent process, meaning that's the first time that somebody will go in and be screened for the trial. After they are screened in, they're assigned to a regimen, and then they're randomized within a regimen active to placebo. So this initial screening and randomization process takes up to 6 weeks. I want to say that it can take much less. It can just be just a few days, but we built in this buffer in case we need labs to come back. And during the pandemic, with a central lab, there's been some supply shortages, as we discussed on previous calls, and that's why we need this buffer to be able to get all the information, especially during the pandemic, on everyone. After the first 6 weeks, people again are randomized to active or placebo within a regimen. So they're getting one drug, and different people are getting different drugs. Again, right now we have 4, so everyone will have essentially 25% chances of being on any of these. And that trial, the randomized trial, lasts about 6 months. At the end of that, there is an option that's not available for all trials, but we really wanted to make it available for this trial, which is the option to go on open label extension if people are interested in receiving the active drug until we know the results of the trial. So essentially, we ask participants to participate in the double-blind trial, and then we offer the option of active drug until we know the results and we know whether the drug works or not. So if you can go to the next slide, every week we are updating the community on our enrollment. I have to say that enrollment is really picking up. We did have a little bit of a slowdown as we discussed during these weekly webinars, especially with the winter pandemic surge. Now things are slowly but surely getting better from a pandemic point of view. And now we see that in the numbers. We now have 559 people with ALS who signed informed consent. So again, that's the beginning of the process. If you didn't meet criteria. However, we have, as of right now, already 440 people that were assigned to a regimen. Again, they were assigned to go on drug A, B, C, or D to begin the testing period. Again, because there is that 6 weeks period between initiating the process up to 6 weeks and actually starting receiving study drug. That's why we sort of have fewer people that are already on drug. That's actually 388. And of those, over 100 have already completed the double-blind portion of the trial and have already entered the open label extension. So what that means is that of those 388 people who started the testing, over 100 of them are already receiving active drug for sure in whatever regimen they were initially assigned. In terms of different regimens or the 4 drugs, because we launched the trial with 3 drugs, ABC, those are the ones that have the most individuals, and drug D as fewer simply because it started later, 6 months later. And you can see the numbers are roughly the same between A, B, and C. A is slightly behind just because there is a 2-week vaccination period for the particular drug, but really the same number of participants have been assigned to A, B, and C. And with this, I really want to thank all of you for partnering with us. As Merit said at the beginning, none of this would be possible without your partnership and support. And we're really grateful to everyone who's contributing to the trial by participating, by supporting someone who's participating, or by spreading the word and just attending these webinars and asking great questions and really sharing the information with the entire community. Next slide. So these are the centers that are actively enrolling right now. We have 52 that are actively enrolling. Their contact information is on our website. And obviously, as always, Catherine and Alison can also help facilitate contact as needed. But again, their contact information is also on our website. Next slide. And we have these webinars on a weekly basis, but we also have many more webinars. They're all recorded on our website. Different topics have been suggested by you. We have a series on the science supporting the first 4 drugs. We are working on a new series on biostatistics that needs to be approved by the Central IRB. And after that, after we finalize all the program, we will have that, I think, over the summer, really, because we have been getting so many great statistical questions. We really want to bring in the experts. I generally try to provide answers to the best of my abilities, but we really want the statisticians to be on for you. Next slide. We have other webinars that we wanted to point out that might be helpful for everyone who wants to learn more development process. Those are sponsored by NEALS and the ALS Association, and that's sort of the list. They've all been recorded, and there's one more coming up in June. And next slide. These are other recordings available for the Amylix webinar that we gave recently, as well as for the new webinar that, that Merit is actually going to give next week on Monday about the entire clinical trial pipeline in ALS. And last slide, last but not least, obviously the contact information for Catherine and Alison that, obviously always available to help you navigate the trial. And with that, I'll end. And would you want me to start? Oh, Merit, you're muted.
Yeah, thank you, Sabrina. And thank you, Catherine and Allison. And, please reach out to any of us. But I'd say that Catherine and Allison have really helped a lot of people find sites that are open and connect people. So they've really been fantastic. So please reach out if you're having any difficulty getting in or you want to learn more about the study. So a couple questions, Sabrina. If you're in the expanded access, how long do you receive the drug, and are you monitored during that time?
Great question. So, and to clarify, I think the question is about expanded access, not open label extension. So it's a little bit different. I want to make sure people understand that what I just discussed is the open label extension, where people receive the drug for several months and they are monitored because that's part of the trial. And again, it provides information about the safety and the effectiveness of the drug. Now, what you are asking about the expanded access, that's a separate concept that's sort of that we're developing either as a companion to the platform trial or as part of other independent expanded access programs. And for those studies, those tend to have less monitoring because they're not part of a formal trial. There is still some monitoring that's required because they're still experimental drugs, but a little less, and their duration can be variable. It depends on the program, but again, they will be separate from this.
For the verdiperstat EAP that you're getting close to starting, how long will that follow-up be for?
For the Biohaven?
Yes.
Yes, there will be 12 months as of right now, yes.
Okay, thank you. There's a question also about EAPs. If you're planning, or I guess is the company planning an EAP for AMX 035?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. That's so important. And I just wish I had all the answers right now. I did discuss that during the webinar that we mentioned, and I'm happy to sort of say again here that that's certainly something that we are actively working on, and I hope that will be possible, but there are many factors contributing to this. So I wish I had the answer. I can tell you that certainly there is the intention to do that. I cannot tell you exactly now, when, but we're certainly working on that.
Yeah. There's another question about AMX 035. So they say it's made up of two drugs, Cudkowicz, which can be difficult to consume because of GI issues. Will the other drug, the phenylbutyrate, work alone?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're correct. There's two drugs, and in preclinical models, meaning in the lab, the data suggests that the two drugs in combination work better than either one alone. Now, you're also asking about sort of, if somebody were to take this compound sort of individually off label, not the actual combination, which is a combination of both, but if somebody were to take, for example, one of the two alone, we don't know if it would work the same. That would have to be tested in a separate trial. Certainly either compound is promising. So, I mean, hopefully, either one could provide some benefit. Again, the reason we're interested in both is because of the preclinical data.
Thank you. How will a company contact you if they had a promising drug and wanted to present to your committee? And there's a kind of part two to that that's important. How far along would they have to be? And the person's asking because we always see these press releases and news stories touting some new discovery as a breakthrough for ALS, but many times they still have a lot of work to do before the drugs go into people.
Yeah, no, this is such a great question. And maybe I'll start, and Merit, if you want to add to that. I mean, I do agree that there's been, especially recently, a lot of news stories with the title headline Breakthrough for ALS. And actually, some questions have come up during these weekly meetings as well. And I agree with you that sometimes it's hard to parse out, a breakthrough in the lab doesn't necessarily, it's still a breakthrough, but doesn't necessarily mean that that's ready for human use or for testing. So I would agree with you that it's very important to look at the details of the press releases, and also kind of ask your physician or ask during these webinars as you're doing what's a kind of a breakthrough in terms of treatments that might be available in the short term versus a breakthrough which is still great news, but it's still in the lab and takes many more years to develop. So in terms of, maybe I'll start in the other part of the question was when would someone approach the platform trial? So I think that there's been a lot of discussions with many companies, which is great. It's always great to start the conversation early on so that we know we are aware of the exciting pipeline. I mean, definitely it's never too early from that point of view. It's great to be connected, and I know many people who are working as part of the therapy evaluation committee for the Healey Center. They're certainly continuously reviewing the literature, all this news, all the papers, etc. In terms of when a drug is actually ready to enter the platform, that a few things need to be available, specifically, more information on sort of the fact that the drug is ready for a large trial. So not a first in human trial that requires maybe a smaller studies first to make sure that we know the dose, that make sure that we know sort of the side effect profile, etc. And so if those preliminary studies have already been done in people, then it will be ready if the results are again promising to enter the platform. Maybe I'll just stop there. Maybe Merit, you can add to that.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely right. I'll say the exciting thing is I think now we've spoken or touched base with 58 companies potentially interested in the platform. Now the first 30 of those have officially applied, and we picked we've now kind of picked 7. And of those 7, 6 have signed contracts with us. So, but there's a lot of companies that have drugs that are really interesting and have great targets and potential, but they're in their kind of phase 1 testing now, meaning the first time in people, figure out the dose, and they'll be ready for the stage of the platform trial is in like 2022. So we definitely, there's a big pipeline there of good drugs and companies interested. So we tried to make the process easy for them. One will talk to any company and tell them about the platform trial, hear about their science. But if they're interested, they have like a 3-page application. We review it for the science, and if they know the dose, and then if yes, then we move forward with contracting. Tim Miller from WashU leads our scientific committee for that. So there are a couple of more questions. I was diagnosed with ALS September 4th, 2017. Can I get into a trial?
So one of the criteria for entering the trial is to have had weakness for less than 3 years. So essentially, if you're saying that the diagnosis was in 2017, obviously I would assume that also that the weakness started earlier, so that would be more than the 3-year mark. And the reason we have, so you wouldn't be included in the trial. However, I would encourage you to talk to your physician and explore other options, either for other trials or for expanded access or off-label supplements and other options. And the reason why we have those cutoffs is because the goal of the trial is to be able to develop drugs or test drugs as quickly as possible for everyone. And in order to do that, we need to enroll a relatively homogeneous population, because enrolling people that have very different characteristics would mean that it would take longer and longer to complete the trial, and it would require a larger trial. So in the end, the time to tell if the drug is effective or not will be longer for everyone.
Yeah, a couple of resources, and maybe I know, Catherine, maybe we can put them in the chat there. So first of all, there are some trials that have no cutoffs for how long people have had the illness, and there's a couple great websites. Obviously, the IMALS has a fabulous clinical trial navigator that would have that information. The Niels Group has a Carly Simon who answers email and phone call and can help on that, and then at Mass General, we have Judy Carey, who's a nurse, who also can answer those questions. So we can put those 3 in the chat to help. But I think the main message is that there are some options for you, and it's about getting to the right people to tell you what those are, if your doctor doesn't know that. So there's a question: when you're on open label extension, can you take supplements that are prohibited during the trial, like TUDCA?
That's a great question. Yes. So the open label extension is still part of the platform trial, and actually it's very important to get additional information about the long-term effects of the drug. And so because it's still part of the trial, for that reason, things that are sort of still experimental are not allowed in the open label extension as well. We continue to review that and see, I guess at some point, this list will continue to change, obviously, because, new drugs might be approved or trials might be stopped. So it's not a sort of a fixed list forever. We continually review that. Actually, we have several discussions about that as well. So as trials open and close, the list might change, but that's why, because the open label extension is very important for the science. Yeah.
So there's a question, whether more of a comment, so the companies should tone it down for press releases. I do think so. Sometimes I don't know if it's the companies or the academic or just the news writers, but there's definitely, it's an overused word. And what we don't want to miss is when the real, when the big breakthrough comes, we want to, be able to sort that through. There's a question, is there an open list of the 52 sites, please? And Catherine put the link to it. We have them all listed on our website, but she put it in the chat, so it's easy to get. Thank you, Catherine. So there's a question about expanded access. So as far as expanded access goes, what's the approximate cost to fund an expanded access slot? A range works as an answer if the exact number is too sensitive.
Yeah. So I can start, and then Mary, please add. But essentially, with some assumptions, such as, for example, in oral drug, what we have calculated so far is that the approximate range, approximate cost per participant would be about $10,000 for 1 year. If the drug is sort of a regular oral drug that doesn't require special monitoring. Obviously, there are other drugs that might have, require intravenous injections or more special monitoring, and for that, the cost will be more. So that's kind of the range that we're looking at per participant.
Thank you. So when do you expect additional sites to be added? And then there's a nice thank you from someone who helped make Lou Gehrig's day happen. And thank you for that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I can't wait to have additional sites because we really want to expand to new geographies and open up new slots. But so we selected a little over 20 new sites, and we expect the first ones to be up and running during the summer. So essentially, we are going in stages, and it's really a matter of how fast can certain sites get on board. I would say that it's not just the site staff; it's also sometimes the offices at the university that have to finalize some of the sort of agreements and other sort of paperwork that needs to be done. So hopefully we'll be able to fast track. We're trying to fast track the first group this summer.
Yeah, thank you. So the person, the attendee who asked about the 52 sites actually meant the companies, not the sites. So that one, we don't have a list public of that because some of the companies are okay for us to share that we're talking to them, and some of them make us sign confidentiality agreements. It depends a lot on where they are in the development, but we could go back and put up, I think it's a good idea, we can put up the list of the ones that have given us permission to do that. But I'm with you, they all should allow it, but they all have different rules of how public they want to be about their programs. But we'll go back and try to see if we can do that. Are the visits and data collection requirements for open label and expanded access as intense as the regular trial?
No, thank you for this question. Perhaps this gives me the opportunity to explain a little bit the difference between open label extension and expanded access. So what was on the slides is called open label extension, which basically is an extension to the double-blind placebo-controlled trial. So it's an integral part of the trial. And for that, so that means that the participant who has completed the placebo-controlled period can get access to the active drug for several months. And because that's part of the trial, and obviously we have people switching over from placebo to active, the safety requirements and sort of the visits are as frequent, at least for the first 6 months, as the main trial. Now we try to remove some of the assessments because again, we also recognize the balance between, the need for data, but also respecting that, that it takes a lot of time and effort to travel to the site and stay for long visits. So we try to really minimize that, but the safety assessments and some of the key components need to be the same because the open label extension is incredibly important to tell if the drug month period. The expanded access is something different. So expanded access is a different type of concept. It's only for people who are not eligible for the trial. And it's essentially, it's also known as compassionate use. It's basically a way to provide access. The primary goal of an expanded access program is to expand access or provide compassionate use access to a drug. And for that reason, sort of the requirements for the FDA requirements for monitoring are a little bit more relaxed. So for those will be less intense from a kind of participation perspective. Yeah.
There's a question from someone who was diagnosed in 2015, is still walking with a walker, and wants to know if they can qualify for trials.
Yeah, I think one would have to look for trials that do not have a cutoff in terms of time since onset. So there are some of them, and I think Merit, previously we discussed a few ways to get the list. There's, you know, Catherine can help, our research access nurse, the NILS navigator, Carly can help. IMALS has also a great dashboard with a list of all the trials. So I think all of those are resources to get, and IMALS also as a research navigator. So there's different people that can help, maybe help you navigate sort of which trials don't have a cutoff.
Yeah, they're often the early phase trials, but they're often good drugs. I'm vaguely thinking that maybe the RAPA trial doesn't have a cutoff, but I think we want to confirm that. And we put in the chat a couple ways to people you could reach out to get that information. The good news is that there's so many trials that we can't actually remember all the specifics. It used to be that we had one trial maybe at a site and we knew all the details, but there's so many now that we need these charts and navigators to keep it all straight. There's a question or a comment from Callie that the IMALS signal has this info available on US and Canada Trial Finder. Yes, and we put the link to that in the chat. So thank you. And then the last question, and we only have 1 minute, but and I don't know if we'll have a complete answer, but it really is, when do we think the enrollment for the first 3 regimens will be complete? To your best guess.
So we continue to look at that, and because again the enrollment slowed down a little bit, and now it's picked up. Mary, correct me if I'm wrong. I think that the latest graph is that enrollment, meaning the last person enrolled in the first 3 regimens, will be at the end of the summer, September.
Yes, I think correct? So. Yeah, that's our hope, is the end of the summer, and then. Yeah, so that's our hope. It's if I looked at the numbers today, there's less than 40 people left to enroll in A, B, and C largely. Yeah. It's amazing, and thank you for all of you who have been part of this. There's a comment that all trials should be in clinicaltrials.gov, and absolutely they have to be, but it's not the easiest thing to navigate. So I love the IMALS website that kind of puts it all there for you, and sometimes talking to someone is really helpful. Good, so we're at the hour. We hope to see, well, I might not see everybody next week. I'm going to be on vacation, but Sabrina will be here, and we'll have a guest speaker, and anyway, we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.